You're listening to the Pulse of Pittsburgh News Radio, KDKA. I'm Larry Richert.
And good morning. I'm Kevin Battle. He was speaking to members of Congress in Washington, D.C., and one of them joins us on the Disk Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline right now.
Representing our 14th district is Guy Reschenthaler on our Disk Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Congressman, good morning.
Hey, gentlemen, good to be back on, and it's always great. Please call me Guy, as always.
It was emotional for us as citizens to watch in, and rare that we had an opportunity under these circumstances to see, first of all, Congress's reaction, standing ovation, and it was very emotionally charged, I would imagine, for all of you, because President Zelensky represents somebody who's under the tyranny of Russia.
Right. Well, President Zelensky is the de facto leader of the free world right now, because we're seeing an absolute lack of leadership from the United States and our normal allies, Great Britain, Germany, and France, and so forth. So to see them, what I would consider a modern-day Churchill, give that address to Congress was moving. And the video that he played was very moving when you saw all the civilian casualties and the Russians targeting civilians. And I thought it was brilliant how Zelensky talked about how the United States was attacked on Pearl Harbor and on 9/11, largely because of the values we have. And then he tied our values to Ukraine and basically said, look, there was terror from the skies on Pearl Harbor and 9/11. The Ukrainians now have that same terror from the skies now, and it's been going on for weeks. So an excellent job tying this together. And then the pitch to Biden to ask him to lead, to step forward, was incredible, because Biden is really the one that's standing in the way between us and a no-fly zone, us and ending the civilian casualties we're seeing.
Are you saying that you are supporting a no-fly zone because many people are suggesting that is World War III's on at that point?
So I would say I don't think it would be World War III, and I'll explain that, but I've been very vocal on my support for a no-fly zone for at least 10, 11 days now. But it won't be World War III. It's a bluff. It's saber-rattling to think that the Russians are going to fire off nuclear weapons. We have a much bigger nuclear arsenal. No one's talking about nuclear war as a realistic possibility. Also, a no-fly zone really would just put the Russian planes on the ground, because we would be able to jam their electronic systems through electronic warfare, basically ground the Russian fighters, and we would be able to take control of the sky. Additionally, the comparison between our air power and the Russians is laughable. You're not going to have like dog fights in the sky like you had in World War II. We're going to be able to take those planes out 3 miles away, if the Russians even do that. But the only way to stop this carnage is to get a no-fly zone in place. We can do a no-fly zone without starting World War III. And if we acquiesce to Russia, to their threat of escalation, then we basically are handing Vladimir Putin our foreign policy and our military strategy. That's not a good place to negotiate from. We should be setting the terms. We should be in control of the situation. Every day that we're not, more innocent people in Ukraine die.
And Congressman Guy, you did say you were in support of the no-fly zone before anybody else was talking about it last time you joined us. What is the difference between the weapons we have given Ukraine and a no-fly zone? Aren't they both provocative measures? And with the latest weapons that we've given Ukraine, can't they effectively hit Russian air capabilities in Belarus and Russia, effectively instituting their own no-fly zone?
Well, I don't think this is a provocation. Remember, it was Russia that provoked this war by invading. It's Russia that's provoking every day when they're bombing maternity hospitals and schools, hospitals for children that are suffering from cancer. So the Russians are provoking this. Now, the difference between the no-fly zone and what we're giving the Ukrainians, yes, we're giving the Ukrainians war material and the ability to take control of the skies from surface to air. We should be also giving them the MiG-29s they need from Poland, so they can put more planes in the air to control that airspace. But the S-300 surface-to-air anti-aircraft batteries are going to be incredible because they're longer range than the Stingers. That's going to be important as well. However, I would say this. If we wanted to, we could end this war today by establishing the no-fly zone, jamming the Russians' electronic capabilities, and putting this to an end. We're choosing to go this long route of a war of attrition. What's so sad is every day you have more and more casualties in Ukraine. and we look weaker and weaker, not only the United States, but the entire West.
Why do we always have to do this? What about NATO? Why won't they enforce what they said they would enforce, and that is to protect, even though Ukraine isn't a NATO country? And I'm just curious what kind of support you're getting for your stance, because we've heard from other nations that think World War III would be on with the no-fly zone.
Well, let me just say this. I'm in the minority here in Congress with this opinion that we should have a no-fly zone. I think ultimately I'll be proved correct, because there's no other way to end these casualties. But I digress on that point. As far as why the United States needs to take a leadership role, look, I'm a firm believer that we have American exceptionalism. We are the shining city upon a hill. We are unique from all other nations in the fact that we are the superpower and that we stand for global peace and stability, free markets, free people, individual rights and liberties. When we choose not to lead, when we step back, our adversaries step forward. And what fills that vacuum is not democracy. It's these totalitarian regimes that you see from the Chinese Communist Party, Russia, Iran, etc. The world actually wants us to lead. The American left has this blame America first concept. If you ask anybody else in the world, they look to us to provide global security and stability. Zelensky didn't come and address Congress yesterday because he didn't want Joe Biden's leadership. Quite the opposite. He asked Joe Biden to be the world leader once again. So I think that we have a responsibility as the global superpower, as the leader of the free world, to protect other democratic states when they're attacked in an unprovoked way.
Okay. How do you deal with Republican colleagues like Taylor Greene, who are coming out as pro-Russian?
Look, it's a big tent party, so we should have different opinions. I don't have to agree with those opinions, but it's disheartening. And what's so disheartening is it strengthens the Chinese Communist Party, because we got to remember the real adversary, the biggest threat to America is China in a growing Chinese Communist Party. The CCP is looking at this. They're going to take a look at invading Taiwan. That we trade a lot with. They have tons of microchips that they import to the United States. It would be crippling to our economy. Also, it would allow the Chinese to move into what's called the first island chain, to allow them to expand their naval power into the Pacific, going from what would be called a brown water navy that's more littoral, focused on the coast, to blue water, where they can project naval power to the west coast of the United States, certainly Guam and Hawaii. So I don't agree with that folks that are echoing Communist Chinese Party talking points, that the points of the totalitarian regime in Russia. That's disheartening. But at the end of the day, we should welcome debate, and we should have a big tent party.
Okay, and with the shipment yesterday that the president announced, thousands of Stinger and Javelin missiles and such, et cetera, would that spur a deal, and what would a settlement between Ukraine and Russia look like?
So as far as the deal goes, I would say this. If I were advising the administration and Zelensky, I would say no deal until NATO, until Ukraine is part of NATO. The Russians are out of any territory they've taken, and they permanently give Crimea back to the Ukrainians. Russia needs to pay a price. Anything less than that, we have acquiesced to Russia and rewarded them for this. Put Ukraine in NATO as soon as this conflict is over, and force the Russians to give up the territory they illegally took both in 2014 and currently. As far as what's going to the Ukrainians now, Joe Biden is taking a victory lap and is trying to act like it was he that put this deal forward. That's nonsense. That was appropriated last week in the appropriation packages that came through Congress. I know because I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I'm actually on the State and Foreign Ops Subcommittee. But so Congress has led on this. Joe Biden is just signing the bill into law that Congress has requested the aid go over $800 million worth of aid. Hopefully that will make a difference. But again, our acquiescence, our delay is leading to more civilian casualties on the ground. That's what's really sad.
Well, more to come. We appreciate you joining us this morning as always. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, gentlemen. Take care.